Dr. Mike Devine, the Chair of the Wiseman Center Community Council, and all other Community Council members, advisory board members, employees of the Wiseman Center, residents of the Wiseman Center, and all other esteemed friends and guests. It is my privilege to welcome you to our celebration of 25 years of giving hope to those whom we serve. The Wiseman Center is a place of hope. It has to be. It is a place of new beginnings. And I can share with you statistics of how many men came through the center since its inception 25 years ago. However, I believe that's not what's important today. What's important is this: each man, a special human being. Each man is important to God and to the center. Each man was created in God's image. And we believe at the Wiseman Center that each man has to be given an opportunity to start again and again and again, if necessary. We believe that it must be instilled in the minds of each of our men that there is a hope for a better future. And each man must be offered this hope. John Trent once said, and I'll conclude with this, is that we are never without hope, no matter how we feel. We are never beyond the reach of God's grace and the touch of His love, no matter how distant these may seem. Even when we are struggling, God brings people into our lives in divine encounters of His grace. And God uses us to pass on His blessing to others by tender touches, encouraging words, and expressions of value. We have been given this privilege of passing hope on to others. And I believe we have the ability to project a positive future, giving them hope and encouragement for life's journey. This is our mission. This is our goal. By God's grace, God gives us the strength to accomplish the same. Welcome again. God bless you.
It's good to see all of you today. Thank you for being here. A number of folk have the opportunity to participate this afternoon and to speak, and to some to bring greetings, and some to participate in other ways. And every one of them have a vital link to this place. I'd first of all today like to call upon Major David Graves, Corps Officer at St. John's Temple. You'll have noticed at the latter part of the presentation that the first executive director of the old Wiseman Center was David's dad, the late Major Ronald Bray. And so it's very appropriate that David would be here today, and I'd like to call upon him to share a reflection at this time.
There's two clarifications. First of all, on the program, and when Wayne said major budgets, he said reflection. In my mind, that's singular, isn't it? But how do you have one reflection in 5 to 8 minutes? Second clarification is when Major George asked me to have a few words on behalf of my late father, I said to myself, you know, my father has never been late for anything in his life. And it's a standing joke in our family that at least we were always at the core, a half hour before the service or more. But I feel honored to be here this afternoon to bring greetings and reflect somewhat. Dad missed this occasion by a year. That's all, a year and a few days, I guess, last week, with the anniversary meeting. This promotion with the Lord last year. But my father was the executive director here for 11 years, and prior to that, in 1985, he had the responsibility of setting up the operation of the Wiseman Center. And in that first year, he oversaw the renovations of the old building. Are we in the old building here now? Part of the old building? We're not.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think prior to that, it was an institution belonging to health services. It seems that when we were in training, we used to, training colleges, we used to come here and visit from time to time. But in that first year, he had the responsibility of overseeing the renovations, also negotiating with the Department of Social Services, and finding staff, recruiting and hiring staff. And so it was a year that was spent in organizing, basically. And then it was a great day on Congress of 1996. It was in June, and I'm not sure, I should have checked the date, June whatever it was. And General Wallstrom was here for the opening. And there was an ensemble from the Canadian Staff Band. We've got the St. John's Temple, and I noticed when I walked in that, it must have been the temple because of the quality. It's good to have you. Little biased, of course. So in that first year, he had the challenge. He had the challenge. There was no facility, and there was no staff, and there was no operating budget whatsoever. And in that first year, he undertook that task. He also suggested the name. When his appointment came, if I recall, the appointment was as the executive director to the men's hostel in the then men's social services department, as THQ administrative structure was at that time. And he suggested to the powers that be that yes, we should name it after General Clarence Wiseman, the first born general, Newfoundland-born general of the Salvation Army. And there's a corps that honors his name now in central Newfoundland, and I suspect that we have the honor this afternoon of probably, I would project that the second Newfoundland-born general is in Army. And I would also suspect that when they open a corps in Norman's Cove, it's going to be called the Brian Pennell Memorial. But anyway, my father had a mission. He had a message. He wanted to tell the men, not only to get the men in and provide them with a safe haven, a place where they could come and have a place to live, have a roof under their heads, but he also wanted to tell them about the gospel message. And in those days, chapel was mandatory. And if I know my father as I think I do, I think he ran a tight ship here at the Wiseman Center. And if there's anybody who was associated with him when he was here, you could probably attest to that. And the stories are probably legion about that. But chapels was number one. You had to be in chapel. And I think he would round the guys up. He ran a tight ship. But he wanted to instill in them the gospel message. He wanted to carry out the mandate of Jesus, where Jesus said, "Inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me." So that was his mission, that was his task. In closing, thank you for the opportunity of taking part, and it's great to see that the mission is continuing with the expansion, and my prayer, and I'm sure my dad's prayer would be as well, that the gospel message and the message of healing of body, mind, and soul would be continued. I was in the Health Science Center just one more comment. I was in the Health Science Center last Sunday visiting after the morning service. And I was in a room visiting one of our folk from the temple. And as I was going in through the room, the wife of the gentleman I was visiting said, "Oh, Major Bray." And when I was leaving, the gentleman in the bed across the way called me over. And for the life of me, I don't know why I never asked him his name. But he said to me, "Major Bray, Wiseman Center." He said, I lived at the Wiseman Center for 5 years. And it wasn't David McKinnon. Was that the guy? There was a guy that lived here for a considerable amount of time. But yeah, he said he lived at the Wiseman Center for 5 years. And he talked about the care and support that he received. So God bless you, Major George, and your staff, as you continue with the ministry.
I'd like to say that for those of us that have the opportunity of attending the Community Advisory Council meetings here at Wiseman Center, we can certainly attest to the fact that we have an outstanding group of individuals who support the work here at Wiseman Center from the community. And if there are other members who are present today, would you like to stand, please? See Ken, the Advisory Council. Ken? Thank you so much. We'd like to salute you and thank you for your work.
Council of the Wiseman Centre consists of volunteer representatives from the community as well as representatives from the Wiseman Centre staff and divisional headquarters of Salvation Army. All members of the Council have an interest in the issue of homelessness and provide guidance to the Wiseman Centre in its delivery of programs and services to those in need in the community. On behalf of the Community Council, I would like to extend our sincere congratulations to the Wiseman Centre for its long-term service to the homeless in the community, to Major Lloyd George for his leadership, and to the dedicated staff for their hard work and commitment to the Centre. The Wiseman Centre continues to grow, develop and change its delivery of programs and services to better meet the needs of the community. This has been certainly demonstrated in the 3.5 years that the Community Council has been in existence, and we continue to look forward to new and better ways to respond to the changing community needs. Again, congratulations to the Wiseman Centre on its 25th anniversary, and we look forward as the Community Council to continuing to serve it.
In all our interactions with the City of St. John's, they've shown themselves to be very supportive of the work of the Army in the city, and have expressed nothing but support for us in our continued efforts to provide our services here at the City of St. John's. And we're so pleased that Councillor Frank Galgay is with us today. Councillor Frank has been an avid supporter of our work and has been most cooperative. We've been able to go to him many times and ask for direction and guidance on many issues, and he's been so supportive. We're delighted that the councillor is here today to speak. Councillor, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honour and privilege today to bring greetings as the ward councillor and a member of St. John's City Council to the Salvation Army on the 25th anniversary of the establishment of the Wiseman Centre. This has been an oasis. It has been a beacon of hope for numerous men who have availed of the services of transitional housing and support services to make them productive members of the community. From my reading of the work of the Salvation Army, not only are you known globally and nationally, but you have made a very significant contribution to the material and spiritual development of Newfoundland and Labrador, and in particular in the city of St. John's. In June I attended the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and they had a very significant workshop on homelessness. They had a group from various agencies and a psychiatrist, and they started emphasizing the fact that, according to the Declaration of Human Rights, the United Nations Declaration of that housing is an essential need and right of the citizens, the same as education and health. They also mentioned the fact that the first step is to provide for homes, provide for accommodations, and then start to deal with individuals who are coping with or have challenging needs in the area of alcohol, addictions, drug addictions, or coping with mental health issues. Salvation Army, from my observation, has not only addressed the material needs, there's more to it than that. They've addressed the spiritual needs of the clients whom they serve, and they brought the message of Jesus Christ to all these people, that you are important, and that you are special, and that you are loved. Us people in society today are quite lucky. Only but for the grace of God, we would be struggling also. So again, I'd like to commend the Salvation Army for their dedication, their commitment in providing this wonderful service over the past 25 years. Before I sit down, I'd just like to share a brief story. And a friend of mine, before I begin, said last week, for goodness sake, he said, never let a politician in front of the microphone. But having said that, I grew up in St. John's in the 50s, and there's unbelievable changes that have taken place in the city. You don't know the face of the city, but in the 50s, excuse me, in the 50s, the inner city of St. John's, the inner core where City Hall is, and the West End and part of the East End, there were deplorable housing conditions, unbelievable. Lacked the basic amenities of water and sewerage. Alcohol was rampant. Poverty was rampant. And I remember as a young boy, it's kind of fuzzy to me now, back in the 50s, the Salvation Army coming on the corner of the street and having a prayer service and having the particular hymns. And then they would go to all these individual houses and go in and speak to the people who were really struggling. And what they brought to these people was encouragement and a sense of importance that they were. In fact, one old gentleman told me once that nobody came near them or came near the place, but it was some of the Salvation Army officers, I guess, who were members who came into their home. So in conclusion again, thank you very much. You have made this city a richer place, St. John's. You have touched the lives of many people for the good, and we hope and pray that we will continue in this ministry for many years to come. Thank you very much.
It's my privilege to introduce our next speaker, Roger Reed. Roger spent some time with us a while ago, and one of our projects outside of the shelter is a supportive housing units on the third floor, which house 10 individuals. But also outside the perimeter of that, in Kilbride Apartments, we have housed about 9 or 10 individuals who have been there for the last 2 or 3 years and doing quite well with support from the Wiseman Centre staff. But one of the areas, when Roger stayed with us, we had a gentleman who came to us who was very sick. And he was with us some several months. And we really don't have the capacity to care for those who are physically ill. But this young man took on himself to be the nurse to this man. He brought him his meals, he washed him, he cared for him like a Florence Nightingale in the male suit. And we thank God for Roger. Roger's been in the apartment how long, Roger? Over 2 years, doing quite well, and we visit him from time to time, and he will have the opportunity just to speak to us. He's one of our special men. We thank him. Go ahead, Roger.
Didn't really know what to say or where I began. The last several years it's been really tough, especially looking for an apartment and dealing with an injury from hitting around, and then left his family passing away. And then came here and I said I want to be in an apartment where someone was drinking at the street dogs and going, it's not my stuff. I wasn't expecting to really get me on a place like this without a blood. And then getting in a place where there's an elevator very accessible, I don't know, it really surprised me. And to come here and see those guys here, even out of residents here, it was really amazing. One thing I couldn't thank the centre. Hard staff, absolutely fantastic. I don't know, that's something, I don't believe in hurting another person. I don't believe in that stuff. You don't get nothing with it. You can help someone, you feel a lot better. I don't know, it's so much. If I had time I could write it on and better just put it in the wardrobe. Both my parents were so charming over the years. My mother, when she's mentioned over the years, go to church. I never really did. When she passed away, I started realizing the father was sick when it was the last 18, 19 years. He couldn't go there because he has health issues. Only till I came close to death my house in October 2004, I started to realize what life was all about. After, I don't know, I tried to put in the words right. After speaking to a couple close friends and the best buddy in the apartment down around town on the third floor, it's nice to know I can go back to the apartment under. There's an elevator accessible under where is it down? I'm trying to find the word for it. Especially now where, I think I'd be in limb some drinking and down street dogs. That's not my style. One thing, great thing about this, our staff, funds, I couldn't think, this goes on now. I don't know what that road was, I guess I know there's something else that.
Thank you so much, Roger, for sharing your story with us today. I was asked to select a scripture for today, and I was led to the 58th chapter of the book of prophet Isaiah. And really, at the beginning of that chapter, the prophet is chiding the people, if you want, for religion without action, if you want to put it in those terms. And particularly, he's dealing with fasting in that particular instance, just to place it in context for you. And so I pick it up in the middle of verse 3, where the prophet says to the people, "Yet on the day of your fasting you do as you please and exploit all your workers. Your fasting ends in quarreling and strife and in strikings with each other with wicked fists. You cannot fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard on high. Is this the kind of fast I have chosen? Only a day for a man to humble himself? Is it only for bowing one's head like a reed and for lying on sackcloth and ashes? Is that what you call a fast, a day acceptable to the Lord?" And the prophet goes on to say, "Is this not the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and to untie the cords of the yoke and to set the oppressed free and to break every yoke. Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood. Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will appear quickly. And then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. And then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and he will say, here I am." And God bless the reading of his word. In July of this year, we were privileged to welcome new divisional leaders to our division of Newfoundland and Labrador, in the persons of Lieutenant Colonels Wayne and Myra Pritchett. Of course, they were coming home after spending some time in England in leadership and ministry, and just previously coming home to Newfoundland, serving as divisional leaders in Ontario. We're very pleased to have them. We look forward to what God will do through their leadership and guiding us over these next few years. We're very pleased that they're here with us this afternoon. Colonel, if you would, come and speak and to introduce our territorial leaders who are also with us today.
First of all, just let me add to the congratulations that have been given today on this 25th anniversary. I was looking at the picture, and of course I saw it for myself as I came, but I noticed, I counted, including the doors, because you wouldn't know it was a door. It's not meant to keep people out, obviously. 14 sets of windows, and some of them have 4 and 5 windows in the set. And there are other windows as you reach out around, but very inviting. Also a sense of transparency as well. And I think that's characteristic of this particular place. And Councillor, I'm sure that this adds greatly to the beauty of this part of the downtown St. John's, and we're very pleased to be in part of that. Now I've been asked to introduce our territorial commander. I can't do that because to leave Commissioner Rosalie out, and I've got another 2 days when I'm captive, because I'm driving, and I can't run away or anything like that, but to leave her out would just not work very well at all. But that's not really the reason, because she's sweet and gracious and would be about that. But in the Salvation Army, particularly when we train, as married couples, we share in a joint covenant. It's a term that's not being used so much these days, because you can now be an officer and have a spouse that is not an officer. But for us, it's that joint covenant and sharing together. And so our lives are intertwined, and so as I share, I will share concerning them both today. They are both Newfoundlanders. Brian was born in Norman's Cove, actually in Markland Hospital, and then went back to Norman's Cove. And Rosalie was born in Carbonear. We were out there last night, and everyone from out in that region seemed to know you. I think that we almost raised the dead, didn't we? Last night. Some of them were coming with, you know, pushing little 4 extra legs and so on. It was amazing to see the way they turned out there last night. You know, even though they look remarkably young, and they are, I should say, but they started quite early as officers, they are now into 35 plus years of officer service. And so they've got a variety of experience as corps officers, church leaders, that is, divisional work with youth and programming and women's ministries. And Brian served as divisional commander in the Maritimes Division before going on as divisional commander in New Zealand, so international experience coming into play. In 2009, they were appointed to London, England, and there Brian was the chief secretary and Rosalie was the secretary for women's ministries in the United Kingdom and Ireland territory. On July the 1st of this year, Commissioners Brian and Rosalie were appointed as our territorial leaders in the Canada and Bermuda territory. And we feel justly proud because of the quality of their service and their lives. They are people of integrity, people of wisdom, and deep commitment to all facets of the Army's ministries throughout our territory. And I think you will discover they've got a special affinity and willingness to strongly support the Salvation Army's ministries in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you our Territorial Commander, Commissioner Brian Pedler.
Well, thank you to Lieutenant Colonel Pritchett, and greetings to community leaders, officer colleagues, and folks here at the Wiseman Centre today. It's a great delight to join you. This kind of popped up along the way for us, and when we were invited, we very gladly said yes. We've known about the Wiseman Centre since its inception. While we served on Adams Avenue for 8 years, countless chapel services and encounters here with the staff and the residents. So it's good to come today and to be able to share. Councillor Frank, you note the human right of housing. One of the statistics that sticks in my mind that was planted there shortly after our arrival back from London, England into Toronto was the reality that a study had just revealed that across this land of Canada, 160,000 people are still considered as homeless in Canada, which means that there is great need in this particular area. And I'm delighted to be able to applaud the representation of our response as a community to that need here in the St. John's area and beyond. So I commend the staff, and I today celebrate the fact that we are doing our part, along with government and community partners, in making it possible for there both to be a place of refuge and a place of moving on to establishing a life of independence. I've often felt that I am privileged to lead or to stand, and I'm always acknowledging, I believe, the shoulders of those of whom I stand with and upon, the folks who've gone before us. We do that here today, acknowledging that there's a great work that covers now 25 years, a quarter of a century, and we give God thanks. I can only begin to imagine how many people have found a helping person by being associated with this place. We give God thanks for that today, and it gives us an opportunity to endorse yet again our confidence in our colleagues in the community who seem to struggle with life on a daily basis, and our vision for them to have an opportunity to improve, to find their way through difficult times, and to find a life of independence yet again. I want to acknowledge today that the Salvation Army remains committed to this significant work across the land, and here in Newfoundland and Labrador through the provision of the Wiseman Centre. It remains a priority for us to reach out, to assist, to help, and I today am particularly proud, if I could use that word, of this expression of God's love and grace in our city here in St. John's. I was at Sears. I don't shop that much. You just need to know that I get dragged to the mall every now and then, as might be the custom for some other male figures in the room. I found myself alone, left in the men's department. And so I was just looking through things. And it happened to be at the top of the escalator. And out of the corner of my eye, I caught this elderly gentleman who approached the escalator no less than 3 times, obviously intending to go down to the next floor, but every time you could see his movements were slow, and when he approached the escalator, it seemed to be moving so fast for him that putting that step forward was nigh to impossible. So after watching this for 3 times, I wasn't in my usual uniform dress. I went alongside him and said, "Do you need a hand getting downstairs?" First he said no, and then he quickly said, "Maybe if you help me." And I discovered, as I've known all my life, that if you take your arm from your elbow out and place it under the arm of another individual, it fits almost perfectly. Did you know that? And it was so comfortable to take his elbow and cradle it in my arm, and together we stepped onto that escalator and I rolled down with him. And as he parted, he said, "Thank you, I couldn't have done that on my own." The Army has always been known for its extended hand. But that's not the Army's responsibility alone. Every one of us has a responsibility to take somebody else's hand or somebody else's arm and just help them take the next step. I believe today, with all my heart, that this place is doing that for countless individuals. So those of you who are here today as staff, as community council members, as community leaders, thank you for believing that that's possible and believing that together we can do that and we can help numbers of individuals just to take that next step that seems absolutely impossible if you have to take it on your own. So I congratulate all today who have been a part of this incredible story for 25 years. And I encourage those who are currently involved and who will continue to dream the dream for the future. May the Lord richly bless you in that very sacred, sacred cause. I have a wonderful opportunity this afternoon to boast. Territorial commanders can boast, you see, and get away with it. The Wiseman Center has been subjected to an accreditation process, which is really about best practice in every area and facet of their existence. Everything from their building, finances, services, health and safety, and the list goes on and on and on, because the binder's that thick. To receive a certificate of accreditation is absolutely wonderful, and congratulations are in order. But unlike my experience in school, I need to be able to note this afternoon that this was an A+ grade. 96% of the requirement was met. That's very hard. Can I say, don't bother quoting me? There are countless locations across the country that would not be able to make that claim and would not be able to be rewarded in this way. We continue to work on that high learning curve. But today, come on up, Major. Let me present to Major George. The Salvation Army St. John's Wiseman Center is granted accreditation in accordance with the Salvation Army Social Services Accreditation Standards and Review Procedures. God bless you. Well done. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a day to celebrate, and I thank God for the Wiseman Center. I thank God for all of you in supporting the ministry that's taking place here at this wonderful place. God bless you each one, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Commissioner. Congratulations to Major Lloyd and his staff. We've only got 4% to work on now, Lloyd.
It's probably public relations.
Take no credit or blame. If you take no credit, you never have to worry about taking blame. We're going to sing. And as we sing to rejoice, that many wonderful stories of grace could be told by men who have been helped and given hope over these last 25 years. So it's appropriate that we sing Amazing Grace this afternoon with the help of the band. And after the song, I'd like to call upon Lieutenant Colonel Ray Rowe. Nice to have our former divisional leader sharing with us today. Also lovely to see Wanda Burke here today. Had such a big role in the development of these places. Nice to see you. Speak up. Oh yes, the cake. We missed the cake. We'll sing first, and then we'll have the cake and then the benediction. All right, Colonel Rowe? We can do it that way? Since I've jumped ahead of the program a little bit. Perhaps you'd like to stand. Some of you have been sitting for a while.